Hi, my name is Nikki Starcevich. I was asked to speak on behalf of the Butte-Silver Police Department on recent terrorist attacks. I was asked to focus on schools, churches, businesses, and government buildings. My presentation will be approximately 15 minutes long. I will start off by describing the events one by one. Then I will talk about what went wrong, what worked, and what worked. I will provide some recommendations as to what could have been done to better the investigation. At the end of the video, I will wrap up my whole presentation into a conclusion. I want to start the first topic off on the attack of the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. The Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. On February 14, 2018, in Parkland, Florida, a former student named Nicholas Cruz opened fire on his school, killing 17 people. Out of those 17 people, some were students and some were teachers. Cruz walked into the school through an unlocked door, pulled the fire alarm, and unloaded his AR-15 rifle. Once the students started to come out of the classroom, Cruz opened fire. He walked in the school wearing a gas mask, carrying smoke grenades with countless magazine clips. Nicholas Cruz was 19 years old at the time of the shooting. His classmates said that he was a trouble kid who kept to himself. He was expelled from Major Stoneman Douglas High School a year prior to the shooting. Cruz was charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder. What went wrong? There were multiple security mishaps. The camera at the school had a 20-minute delay. Therefore, police were 20 minutes behind locating Cruz. The gates of the school were wide open and the doors were unlocked. The school officer was caught on camera standing outside of the school waiting for backup. Instead of going inside and stopping the gunman, the police officer stood outside radioing for help. A campus security monitor failed to sound the alarm of an unknown man inside with a gun. The shooting started at 2:30 p.m. The gunman was apprehended at 4 p.m. This is over an hour with multiple magazine clips and an AR-15 rifle. The teen went online on YouTube prior to the shooting and stated that he is going to be the next professional shooter. The gunman posted pictures of himself with multiple guns on Instagram. Many say that Cruz was a loner and they had expected him to lash out at some point in his life. There was also some things that went right. The FBI stood behind the local police to provide as much funding as they needed. The briefing after the shooting provided facts that the citizens must know to fight terrorism or to fight the next terrorist attack. They stated that the 19-year-old uploaded a YouTube video stating that he was going to be the next professional shooter. The briefing also provided that Cruz posted multiple pictures on social media indicating his obsession with guns. Informing the community of the social media pictures informs them on what to look for in order to stop future attacks. The children and the teachers on the second floor of the school were all uninjured. The teachers turned off the lights, covered the windows, locked the door, and hid the children. The teachers told investigators that they had training in the Code Red months before the shooting. The teachers stated that they remembered their training, and that is why they covered the windows and turned off the lights, resulting in saving multiple children. I recommend that the school make mandatory classes on active shooting, place locks on the doors, close the gates, and fix the camera settings. Due to the 19-year-old posting Instagram photos and YouTube videos, someone should have recognized something. I recommend having seminars to discuss if you see something, say something, to report it. Those methods will help to fight future attacks. The time in between the initial shooting and the suspect being apprehended was devastating. I recommend more active training for the local law enforcement department. I believe the school officer could have saved the children who were shot and injured some of the children who were shot and injured. He did not enter the building to locate the shooter, which is the police's number one priority, to stop shooters. He stayed outside and waited for help, allowing children and teachers to become Cruz's victims. Perhaps school officers need the most training in active shooting. My next terrorist attack is on the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Devin Patrick, 26 years old, opened fire at his local Christian church with his Ruger AR assault rifle, killing 26 people and injuring 20. 12 of those victims dead were children, the youngest being 5 years old. Patrick has an extensive background, ranging from assault on his wife and child to receiving bad conduct from the military. Along with the bad conduct, Patrick was confined for over 12 months and was forced to step down in rank. The motive for the shooting was to kill Patrick's mother-in-law. Patrick's mother-in-law was not in the church at the time of the shooting. A citizen who lived next door to the church heard the shots fired. He armed himself with an assault rifle and shot the suspect as he was running out of the church. The suspect was shot by the armed civilian and died at the scene. What went right? One of the things that went right in this tragic incident is the community's support. All community churches came together and prayed. During the briefing to the community, the police disclosed the family's domestic problems. They stated that this was not an act of religious or an act of hate crime. It was not an act against a religion or a hate crime. I feel details like this are needed for the community to mourn. The police also informed the community that the goal of law enforcement is to stop the active shooter. There were some things, however, that went wrong. The news channels told the community what hospital the victims were being treated at. The hospital is a small town and did not have the room to treat the victims. It was not equipped to treat people with that severe of trauma. The military does not allow anyone who has been dishonorably discharged to own a gun. Furthermore, Patrick was dishonorably discharged from the military. Devin Patrick should have never been able to purchase a firearm due to his military misconduct. Unfortunately, the military did not upload his conviction to the national background system. Patrick sent threatening text messages to his mother-in-law prior to the shooting. His mother-in-law should have notified police. I recommend every hospital have an emergency procedure in place for terrorist attacks, no matter the population of the community. The population of Sutherland, Texas, back in 2018 was 600 people. This shooting should have never happened. Knowing the suspect sent threatening text messages to the targeted victim, the police should have been notified. Furthermore, the military should have had more professional experience and should have reported Patrick's military dishonorable discharge, making it illegal for him to buy a firearm. My next terrorist attack is against a government building. On January 6, 2020, hundreds of people stormed the Capitol building after Donald Trump's speech. This act of terrorism will go down as one of the most historic events in United States history. President Trump was holding a rally for his upcoming election. The Senate was holding debates on the election fraud. Shortly after the debates, the group of people started to protest outside the Capitol building. Within minutes, the group of protesters started breaking windows to unlawfully enter. One person was shot while trying to enter the Capitol. She later died of her wounds. Another man was shot by police inside. His name is Ashley Babbitt. 7 people died in this attack, and over 140 officers were severely injured. The attack went on for over 4 hours. About 5:45 p.m., the Capitol was secure. What went wrong? President Donald Trump's speech, he mentioned taking back the Capitol. The Trump supporters acted on his words to actually take back the Capitol. It took 2 hours for President Trump to address the country to go home. However, during his videos addressing the violence, Trump continued to make comments on the voter fraud, thus fueling the people's hate for the government. Police were outnumbered by the civilians. There were, however, 2 things I believe that went right. Shortly after the protesters stormed the building, the National Guard was activated to secure the Capitol. States imposed curfews on the community to stop the riots. I recommend that during elections, politicians who hold rallies for their elections cannot make comments on violence. Before addressing the country, other members of the House can evaluate their speech before going on stage. I think valuable lessons have been learned for politicians. They must watch what is said at the rallies. Hopefully the government has learned many more lessons for the next upcoming elections. For example, voting rules cannot change during elections. There were many uncertainties due to COVID-19, however, but people lost their trust when the government started to change the rules at the last minute. My next terrorist attack is on a business in Orlando, Florida. On June 12, 2016, a downtown gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida was packed with 320 people. A single gunman named Omar Mateen, who was 29 years old at the time of the shooting, went inside the bar at last call and started shooting innocent people. Once inside, Omar took multiple people hostage, killed 50 people, and wounded 53 others. During the shooting, the gunman called the police to pledge his allegiance to ISIS. The police set up a perimeter and waited outside for over 3 hours. During those 3 hours, police were talking to the people inside and setting up an escape plan. The police took out an air conditioning unit and started evacuating the hostages through the hole in the wall. The hole in the wall was made to escort the victims to safety. However, Omar, the shooter, climbed through the hole and started shooting at the officers. It was at this time the police set off a controlled explosion to gain the gunman's attention. After the explosion, an armed police car smashed through the club as SWAT entered the building. At approximately 5:53 a.m., the suspect was shot and killed by police. There were some things that did go wrong. The first 911 call did not go through until 2:03 a.m. The police did run out of ambulance vehicles to transport the wounded victims to the hospital. Police started placing the victims in the back of the patrol cars to drive them. Some were driving them in citizens' personal cars. Dozens of people were stuck inside. People were climbing over each other to exit the nightclub. Victims in the nightclub were texting police because they were too scared to call, thinking the call would make noise. That said, dispatch was not able to receive enough information through the text messages. Furthermore, the police did not know about the hostages, and nobody could provide a good description on what the shooter looked like due to the low lighting in the nightclub. There were some things that did go right. The officer first on the scene immediately started exchanging gunfire to stop the shooter. There were over 300 officers from multiple different agencies in Florida who responded to the scene. Although the call to dispatch did not go out until 2:03 a.m., officers responded and started the gunfight at 2:08 a.m. At 2:10 a.m., the suspect was trapped in the bathroom. And at 2:28 a.m., negotiators were on the scene and on the phone with Omar. Again, the suspect was shot and killed by police at 5:53 a.m. I believe the police followed the active shooter strategies very well, were able to save as many hostages as possible, and stopped the shooter. I recommend that all nightclubs and bars install emergency devices to call 911. The first call did not come in until 2:03 a.m. Last call is at 1:15 a.m. This means that the gunman had 18 minutes to shoot as many people as possible. Nightclubs and bars are both dark and loud. When the shooter started firing, many people could not see or hear the shots fired due to the low lighting and loud music. Perhaps clubs should place an emergency button behind the DJ booths and bar. Once they push the emergency buttons, it automatically calls 911. During the shooting, people were climbing over each other to exit the nightclub. Some people were even trapped in the bathrooms, unable to exit. In a nightclub so large, there must be multiple different emergency exits. This includes my presentation on the terrorist attacks on the high school in Parkland, Florida, the church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and the nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Nicholas Cruz, in the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida, killed 17 people. There were, however, many security issues that allowed the gunman to enter the building. Thankfully, some teachers remembered their training and saved the children on the second floor. Cruz was taken into custody by police. In Sutherland, Texas, Devin Patrick, 26 years old, opened fire at his local Christian church with his Ruger AR assault rifle, killing 26 people and injuring 20 others. He has an extensive background and was dishonorably discharged from the military. Patrick should have never been able to buy a gun legally. Devin Patrick was shot and killed by a citizen. During President Trump's election speech debate, he encouraged his followers to take back the Capitol. Soon after his speech, the group of people at the rally started to storm the Capitol, killing 7 people and severely wounded 140 officers. Thankfully, the National Guard was activated to secure the building. Omar Mateen in Orlando, Florida, took a nightclub hostage, killing 50 people and injuring 53 others. The police acted fast and did very well in taking out the shooter. Omar called police during the shooting to pledge his allegiance to ISIS. Omar was shot and killed by police after a 4-hour-long standoff.